good morning, or good afternoon. This is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. And here we are. Today is Wednesday. It's August 30th, 2023, and we have a great guest today. So let me introduce him right away. This is Richard Jensen, who is the founder of Be a Champion in Life. He has a truly inspiring comeback story of redemption from the depths of addiction for years, with many years in and out of prison, to eventually finding his way to a homeless shelter at 34 years old. Richard got sober about 20 years ago from the shelter and went on a quest to stay sober and become a national wrestling champion. On his journey to become a champion, he found himself in the process and ended up at the top of the podium for 10 years of competition. But more importantly, became a man of integrity, nationally known motivational speaker with an Emmy Award-winning comeback story on ESPN, and author of his autobiography, Be a Champion in Life. Please welcome the man who speaks to tens of thousands of kids all across the nation about the dangers of addiction today with 20 years clean and sober. Here he is. This is Richard Jensen.
Yeah.
How are you, buddy?
Jay. I'm excited, man. I'm glad you got me on. Your intro got me fired up. And then, talking about me, it kind of got me grounded and humbled. And it reminds me that, chasing the national championship and wrestling being the vehicle, the more important championship of all was becoming a family man, a good father, a husband, man of integrity, the things that are most important in life, so it's exciting to win those championships.
Absolutely. And I'm just so excited to have you on here because, we booked this. You probably thought that I was crazy when we booked this about a year ago. I had interviewed Frank Jasper, who was from Vision Quest, and he said, man, you got to talk to Richard Jensen. He's got an amazing story, lots of energy. And so here we are a year later after we first booked it, and let's get it going.
Jasper. Thanks, Jasper. One of the greatest wrestling movies in the 80s of all time, okay?
Oh, I think one of the greatest wrestling movies of all time.
Yeah. He's a great human being, too. And it's like, we became friends. And so it's cool that we toot each other's name and bring it in conversation, and helps connect the right people, because we're all on the same mission, and that's just to make the world a better place, create more positive human beings, and chase your dreams and goals and aspirations. So just different angles. We all have different angles.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, well, the first thing I want to ask is, this is your story, your motivation behind creating and spreading the word of being champion for life. Tell us the story and the motivation behind it.
Yeah, well, I came from years of demise, and we'll talk some more about that. But what really, really happened in my process was, an 8th grade class wrote me letters, about 20 years ago, about 2010. And a teacher, let's just say Be a Champion in Life was a story, and then I got a bunch of letters from an 8th grade class one day. The teacher took the ESPN documentary of my story, because it was on national television, I feel like we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but in 2009, the story was on ESPN, and the teacher took that documentary into the classroom and played it to his 8th grade class. And that 8th grade class had to do a class lesson around Rich Jensen's comeback story. And it was, tell a story about your own personal life of struggle and something you've seen in your life. Ask Rich Jensen a question, and then write a little report on what you learned from the documentary, of my story. And I got these letters in the mail, and I'm reading them, and I'm in tears, I'm in tears because there's heartfelt letters from these kids that are pouring their hearts out. And I was supposed to write them back. And, my wife and I, at the time, my wife and I decided we were going to take a trip to New York, all the way across the country, and meet these kids. Instead of just writing them back, we flew to New York. I called the principal and said, hey, I want to talk to all the students in the school, and then I want to have a private session with these kids that wrote these letters and answer their questions in person. Mm-hmm. And I never spoke publicly before about my story in a group setting, and I went to the school and I talked to his 857th and 8th graders, shared my story from desperation to success and overcoming tough times and addiction. And then I had a private session with these kids and talked about, their letters they wrote me and answered the questions. And I was so fired up and empowered when I left there, man. My wife and I looked at each other and said, we just changed some kids' lives forever, and so we came home and we created Be a Champion in Life the next day, basically, and decided that we were going to talk to more kids about, some of the tough times that I faced through my, years, and share that powerful story with them in hopes that there might be a kid that decides not to use drugs because of it, and at the same time, we're teaching teachers and administration about addiction and about, my journey to success through sobriety and wrestling and, becoming the man I am today, and for the last 10 years, that's what we've been doing. And so now we speak to tens of thousands of kids a year about it, so that's how
that's
Be a
awesome.
Champion was born. It was in 8th grade. That's what I always say. Hey kids, your voice is being heard, speak up because your voice is being heard. They wrote me letters, and I go back to that school every couple of years, and talk to the kids. And I thank that school system and the kids and that administration for helping me launch Be a Champion in Life, because without them, I might not have, been empowered to go create it,
Yeah. Now let me ask. So it was an 8th grade class that the teacher saw your story, and the kids wrote you letters, and you took a trip to New York. What prompted you, in your mind, what said, I need to go see these kids, because, if you were on TV, you probably could have gotten letters from a bunch of different schools, a bunch of different kids. And a lot of people might just read them or put them to the side or not do anything about it. What actually got you up and over to New York?
Yeah. So you have to almost rewind and understand, like I spent 15 years in drug addiction, once I started using drugs right after high school, my life was a disaster and I could not stop, and through that period of time before I got sober in 2003 at that homeless shelter, I'd been in and out of jail for many years off and on. I'd been on parole. I disappointed my family. I disappointed the people that I loved. It drove a wedge between any of the dreams and aspirations I had in my life. And drugs controlled everything for a lot of years. And I lost a sense of reality. I lost a sense of connection with the things that I cared about, and I made a lot of mistakes. And over time, the truth is I stacked up a lot of bad decisions and mistakes. And here I am getting sober, staying sober for a few years, making change in my life. My relationships are getting better. I'm finding myself through the sport of wrestling. And my aspirations and inspiration and confidence is building, and I'm building some sobriety, and I'm becoming that guy that I was always supposed to be. And here I am at a moment in my life. I decided I was going to train to win a national title. I ate right, I slept right, I made good decisions. Every decision had everything to do with getting to the top of the podium. That was my primary focus for 3 solid years. I made it to the national tournament. I had a great year, and all of a sudden some kids out of the blue drop a letter in the mail that comes to me. And it was a moment in my life where there was a decision to make that was going to tilt the scale back over. And something good that I get to do. And I believed deep down that I owed that to those kids. I owed that to myself to get up and do more. And more meant not just to write a letter response. More meant to get 2 airline tickets, jump on a flight, go to New York, and try to make a difference in somebody else's life. Do something really positive, for them and for me, And in a lot of ways, it was just about tilting those scales back and doing something really good for the community, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed that there was going to be some internal wealth from it, Jason. I didn't know that it was going to start a road to do everything we've done over the years, but I needed some internal wealth. I needed to tilt the scales back, you know, and that was one way I could do it.
Wow.
Plus, I never been to New York.
So you got to go.
Yeah. Let's go. Wife and I went to New York City and spent a couple weeks. I hadn't left the state in years. So we went out and had a great time, saw the city, and then went up to upstate New York, met the school, met the kids, and it was so heart-wrenching, dude. I mean, we're in tears. It's heart-wrenching. It was just such an emotional connection with these kids and with my story. For the first time, I was so intimate and vulnerable and honest, and it went so well. It was like, wait a minute, we could probably do this again, you know, and help more kids, help more people, and do something with it. So yeah,
that's so inspiring. I kind of get a little goosebumps as I hear you telling it, because I imagine, you know, having trained and taught martial arts for, you know, more than 75% of my life at this point. You know, I've been, you know, in the position where I know that I've made a difference. As a matter of fact, I received a phone call from a parent this morning giving me some information that just made me feel like, wow, you know, we are really making a difference in our school and what we do for her child and so many others. So I know that feeling, and I kind of watch the kids' eyes get big, and I watch the parents as I could see their heart warm when their child has this breakthrough or this change in mindset. And so I'm getting the goosebumps listening to you have that opportunity for the first time to go in front of a group of students, to go to a school, you know, that you weren't already involved in, and just kind of go in cold and be open and tell your story. So now I got to dig in and get a little bit personal for a minute. Let's talk about your childhood and what led you to the drugs, led you to serving time, led you to the destruction that was happening in your life.
So if you rewind all the way back to high school, you know, middle school, high school, I was a kid that was very hyper and very had trouble focusing on things, and I was just off the wall. You know, I was all over the place, and very high strung and hard to handle, and my mom introduced me to wrestling. You know, and I'm in about the 4th or 5th grade, and she introduced me to wrestling. For some reason, she had this inkling that it would help me, and you know, next thing you know, I'm in hand-to-hand combat sports. You know, I'm wrestling, and I'm loving it. You know, and so wrestling, it's been a part of my life, my whole entire life. You know, and as you know, as an athlete and coming up and being an athlete, it helps keep you grounded. It helps. You know, it helps you with community and social things, and a part of the team, and you feel a part of, and there's just so many advantages to being an athlete, you know, being in sports of some sort. And not to knock anything else, I think we should be involved, kids should be involved in stuff, but wrestling for me was the key, you know, and I wasn't very good. I wasn't very good at school. I wasn't a very good wrestler, but I needed wrestling more than wrestling needed me. Let's just put it that way, you know. It was a place that I learned how to, you know, to set goals. I learned how to stay motivated in hard times. I learned how to overcome challenges and be resilient, and all these things that are really important, you know, in life at some point. You know, you tap into those things, and that's where wrestling gave me a great base for when my comeback, you know, decides to happen. I knew I needed to tap into wrestling. But, you know, I graduated from high school, and I tried drugs for the first time, Jason. And, you know, it dictated my life for almost 20 years. Once I used, I couldn't stop, you know. And, you know, my mom wasn't a drug addict. My dad wasn't a drug addict or alcoholic. Or it's just for me. Once I used, I wasn't able to stop, and I that monster held on for a long time, you know. in that process, I started, finding my way in and out of jail at times. Criminality is coupled right along with drug addiction for a lot of people, and for me it was. My mind just shifted into a place that I never knew before. I didn't understand it. I didn't know it. I didn't. I was raised in a good family values, good belief system, athletics, wrestler. I was raised in a good, safe, comfortable environment and system and culture. But then once I used drugs, it's just like this shift happened. And for me, I realized years ago that I'm an addict. I can't use it all. I can't drink it all. But unfortunately, it took a lot of years of mistakes, and it took a lot of years of demise, and it took a lot of years of heartbreak and relationships and to figure it out. My hope is that people can figure it out a little sooner than me, a little bit, because I had to dig a pretty good hole, Jason. But, I was fishing up in Alaska. That's where I got introduced to drugs. That environment, it's very alcoholic, a lot of drugs. They work long hours. It was a tough environment that I was put in at 19 years old up in Dutch Harbor, Alaska, And, once I used, I just had a hard time stopping. And so for 15 years, I'm starting to do crime, and I'm supporting my habit, and I'm distancing myself from my family. I'm distancing myself from my loved ones. It's driving a wedge from between any of the dreams and goals that I had growing up. I always dreamed of being in college and being an athlete, and getting an education and being a teacher somewhere and a coach. That was what I saw in my life. And drugs that's not its plan, and its ultimate plan. Yeah.
What was your rock bottom? What was that moment that you just once and for all, this is it, done. I need to get out of this. And did you bounce back and stay back, or did you battle through that some more?
Right. So there's a lot of a lot of people's story is relapse and battling and getting sober over and over again, and finding AA and 12-step and treatment over and over. And for me, I never really got introduced to any of these programs throughout the years. And so when I got sober, in fact, October 10th, it'll be 20 years, So October 10th, 2003 is my sober date, and that's the most important date of the year, because without that, I got nothing else around me, for me, I detail it in my book, like rock bottom is what it's. The chapter's called Rock Bottom. I did a year in prison. I got out, and then within 6 months later, I did another year. And then I talk about the things that, because everybody wants a magic recipe or a magic formula, and the truth is, every individual, it's a different formula to get sober and be successful. Okay.
Right.
For me, there's a vehicle involved. That's wrestling. I call it the vehicle. But my bottom was, I graduated from medium prison to maximum. I went to where all the killers are and the rapists and all that, and I'm just a drug addict that fights and steals and made a whole lot of bad decisions, but I'm way out of my element, and I realized I graduated, and I realized that from now on, it's going to get worse from now on. I'm going to be, a state prisoner. And so I'm at the state penitentiary. While I'm there, my mom passed away. And, I didn't realize how sick she was, and she was fighting cancer. I was so detached that I didn't even know that she'd been sick for a while. And, I was paroled to a homeless shelter when I left there, because I didn't want to go back to the drug house. I wasn't mandated into treatment, so I went downtown where it might be safe. In a shelter was safer than the drug house. Let me put it that way. The experience, those things. There's a few things that happened in a short period of time that impacted my life greatly, And it started by finding out I had a sister for the first time. I got a letter from her in the mail just prior to getting locked up that last time, and I found out I had a sister, and that was very powerful for me, you know. And I hadn't seen my youngest daughter for a couple of years. I kind of abandoned her because of the drugs, and she showed up on my doorstep with her mom one day, and you know, that was really powerful for me, and it was another light eye-opener thing. And then going to prison and ending up in the homeless shelter, and you know, my mom passing away. These were the key elements, the things that happened in my life that impacted me enough to say, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to try to stay sober. And I know that if I can do that, my life's going to get better. I didn't know how good. I didn't know that I'd be where I'm at today, but I knew that the life I was living, I was going to end up in prison for a long time, or dead, or on the streets, you know, permanently, because I was coming from ground zero, you know, you know, addiction and bad relationships, and I wanted something better in my life, Jason. I wanted something better. I came from good family values, a good upbringing. I wanted to make my mom proud moving forward, and I talk about that in the ESPN documentary that's out there, and how the impact that my mom had on my life at that time, you know, leaving this world. And like, for me, it was like, that was it, you know. And it's not like I just stopped using, never used again. I mean, I went out and seeked out treatment. When I was in that homeless shelter, I seeked out treatment. I wanted to get into a program. I wanted somebody to help me do this thing, you know. And so I found a treatment program that would actually take. I write about that in my book too, because I'm not mandated to treatment. I don't have insurance. I don't have any money. So I had all these reasons that you can't get into treatment, right? And I just kept pounding on doors. I just kept knocking on doors. I'd get up in the morning, get out of that shelter, and I'd knock on a treatment door. I need help. I want to stay sober. Can you help me? You know, and I remember that I was running out of options. The anxiety was getting high. I was in a downtown environment, you know, and there's a good chance that I could use. Things could get tough, you know. But Central City Concern, David Fitzgerald took me in. Finally, a door opened, and he said, "I'll give you a chance to be in our program," you know. And he said, you know what he said? He said, "I don't just take anybody in just because you knock on my door. You check in with me every day for the next 2 weeks, and I'll try to find you a bed," you know. And I got up every day, and I went up to meet David Fitzgerald, and I'm like, "You got a bed?" He's always like, "Are you still sober?" And I'm like, "Yes." Anyway, it was a couple weeks, and then finally I got into a 6-month treatment program, coupled with a mentoring program. And a lot of the counselors and mentors had lots of time of using and done a lot of time in prison. And so it was a mentorship. It was a peer mentor type ship program. And it worked really well for me. It really worked well, you know. And then I was introduced to AA and 12-step. And from that treatment program, I moved into a sober living house for a while. I believed in the process, and I took it for everything it was worth. And every single day I decided that no matter how hard it gets, no matter what happens in my life, I'm just not going to use drugs. And you know, if I can just do that for the day, then it's a massive win, you know. And and over time, you know, we got 20 years. So
right, yeah, you know, that the quote, "one day at a time," that process of living one day at a time. I mean, that can truly be applied to anybody in really any situation, whether you're, you know, an addict or you're someone that's setting goals, you know, and just focusing on one day at a time. I've heard the quote, you know, "take care of the days and the years take care of themselves." Right.
Yeah.
So one day at a time. Now, what's your relationship with David Fitzgerald still? Do you still in contact?
Yeah, we are. So a lot of the mentors and counselors, we're still all in good relationships, you know, over the years, and they, they're pretty excited for what we're doing today. Everybody, it's a massive win when one of your mentees comes through and goes on and actually works in that field, just a different lane, working with kids and actually sharing my story to try to change the world,
Right.
And back to your philosophy. So like one day at a time is massive. Sometimes the buzz of the world, there's so much destruction, so much going on. You got to break it down, Jason.
Right.
I came from an athletic background, so for me, a lot of the 12-step and a lot of the mentorship and a lot of the things that they're trying to teach us, I just related to athletics. I related to being an athlete or a coach or a mentor in a lot of ways, and I think that helped me be successful because I looked at it from a little different angle, and it comes down to I've always had lofty goals, but we have to keep sight on the smaller goals that are going to help us get there,
Right.
Sometimes it's big strides, and other days it's baby steps, and you got to celebrate those little wins along the way, because without those little wins, that big lofty goal that you have, that I have, it seems unattainable,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you got to celebrate those little goals, and literally as you start moving forward and up, at whatever it is, it doesn't have to be sports, it doesn't have to be wrestling, it could be life, it could be business, it could be relationships. All of it is about building connections, building relationships, and moving towards your goal, whatever that is. It doesn't matter how big or small.
Yep.
For me, I've always had lofty goals.
Absolutely. Hey, real quick, shout out to Kurt Klingenmeyer. Kurt is watching through that comment up here. He's loving the story so far. So thanks, Kurt, for watching. And if you have any questions, please let us know. But I love what you're talking about. The little baby steps, because as a martial artist, everybody wants to be a black belt, right? Like that's your first big goal. Well, you can't get to black belt without earning one belt at a time. And we earn belts by earning one stripe at a time. And we earn our stripes by coming to class, one day at a time. So it all, like you said, it totally ties in. And then you brought up something that I think is really important, is talking about the relationships that you build and talk about the community and the culture that helps. When you were an addict, you were surrounded by addicts and the people that were doing drugs, right? And people that were drinking. And so when you're surrounding yourself with that, that's kind of the path you're going to lead. But when you flip that switch and go to the other side, you start surrounding yourself with people, positive, goal-oriented, leadership, motivation, education, and going that route, it's like you almost can't get enough of either one. And that is that addictive personality anyway, right?
Yeah.
One way or the other. So if you're going to be addicted to something, let's be addicted to as many positive things as we can, right? So talk about the other, relationships and community that you've built along the way.
Yep. So for me, it was like I spent 15 years in bad choices, addiction, drugs, that environment, those relationships, ex-convict, deadbeat father, criminal. That was my world, right? And I detailed in my book how that shift happened at the homeless shelter. And back then we had a little phone book we carried in our pocket, right? We didn't have iPhones with all the numbers in there. I had a little phone book I opened up, and there's all the numbers of all the relationships over the past 15 years. And I remember how empowering it was for me when I took that phone book and stuck it in an ashtray and left it in downtown Portland, and I told myself that I'm going to put this life behind me. I'm going to abort all these relationships I've built. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to start with recovery, people making good choices, my family, athletes, and that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start surrounding myself with good, positive people that are moving in the same direction I am, basically, And what I've learned in that process is if you want to be something, or if you want to have something, you got to be around those kind of people, Jason. It's infectious, man. And for me, it was like, if I can get into wrestling, I'm around athletes that are trying to get an education. They're trying to be elite athletes. They're chasing national titles, right? So I'm going to surround myself with those kind of people. And And what I learned is that hanging around with other addicts trying to stay sober is a positive thing in my life too, you know? So I was playing sober softball. I was going to sober campouts. I was going to sober meetings. I was meeting the recovery community in Portland. And I was hanging around those kind of people that are trying to make a better life for themselves and stay sober. And and in that process, it helped me in a lot of ways, you know. And even today, you know, I chant about the relationships, the people you hang out with. It's really super important, you know. And so for me, it's about athletes, it's about coaches, it's about people, leaders in our community. It's about people making good choices. Literally, those are the kind of people I want to be around. Successful business owners, people like yourself, you know. I want to be around people that will help encourage me, will help boost me up and motivate me. We can help each other keep moving forward, you know, because that is a recipe to help you be successful, you know, is making sure you're around the right people.
Absolutely. Definitely. Now, again, quick shout out to Dana Abbott. Dana Abbott is watching. He says, howdy. So, how you doing, sir?
Dana.
Hope everything is good. Dana, if you have any questions, Dana or Kurt, still watching, any questions, let me know. Would love to ask them for you. The next thing I want to talk about is, you know, let's talk about the ESPN special and how that came to be. You've kind of described what it was about, but how did it come to be and how did it play into the rest of your life?
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is it's about being, you know, being resilient and overcoming challenges. It's a huge message in my story, guys, because, you know, I got years of bad choices. Well, I don't just get sober. My life's better. And all of a sudden I'm successful. You know, there's no driver's license for 15 years. I'm an ex-convict with felonies. You know, there's all kinds of stuff. I'm a deadbeat father, all these things, you know. Getting sober was one thing. And then it was trying to move forward in your life, you know. You know, wrestling became that vehicle for me. It helped keep me grounded, but I wasn't always winning matches, guys. You know, life's about challenge. It's about getting up when things get hard, getting up after taking a loss. You know, as you know, it's really important sometimes to take a few losses, you know. And I had this big grand plan to get on the wrestling team and get a college degree. And I'm 37 years old trying to wrestle with these young elite athletes. And it was just a really unique story for somebody my age to come back into wrestling.
Real quick. You said you were 37 years old when you started this path. 37.
Yes. I got sober when I was 34. It took me about, you know, 3 or 4 years to get grounded, get my confidence back, and stay sober for a while. And then I decided, okay, now I got the sobriety handled. I want to go back to school and I want to be on the wrestling team, you know? Nice. And I knew that it was going to help elevate me. It was going to help me fill a void I've had inside of me, missing wrestling and should have been, you know? But I'm 37. So I'm 10 years older than the coaches. I'm 20 years older than the college athletes. So it's a really unique, unheard of comeback story at this point. But I go back and I talk to the athletic director. I says, hey, you guys have a great automotive program. Clackamas Community College. And I want to be on your wrestling team. And the athletic director looked at me like, you want to what? I said, I want to be on the wrestling team. He goes, how old are you? I go, I'm 37. He goes, how long has it been since you wrestled? I said, almost 2 decades. And he goes, well, you know, I think people forget how hard and demanding it is and how, you know, what it takes to be an elite college athlete. He goes, I think that, you know, you could probably be part of the team, you know. And I think in his head, he's thinking like water boy or something, you know. And I left that meeting, though, and I'll be honest with you, what I took, he was trying to let me down easy. But what I took from it was, there's a chance you could be part of the team, right? And that's all I needed. And so I showed up first day, you know, and here I am. It's just they figured that the bets were in, the over-under was in. The old man's going to make it a week. The old man might make it 2 weeks. There was a lot of private betting going on, you know. And and I made it through a whole wrestling season. And I lost every single match but one. And I detail in my book, Jason, how important it was for me to see this thing through. What people didn't realize was that it was about winning my life back. It was bigger than wrestling, Jason. Wrestling was just the formula I needed. I needed to be part of the team, but the bigger thing was that I was winning my life back. I was staying sober. I was building relationships with my family again. I was getting an education. The win was happening off the wrestling mat. It might be difficult to get up and keep facing opponents and get up and face your teammates, and that's hard. It's hard to get up when you're losing, And I just kept getting up and showing up. And the end of that season, I was like 17-1 or 1-17 or something like that. And what the guys didn't realize is I was going to see it through 2 full years. And I learned a lot that year. And I moved into a sober house, a different sober house. And I trained all summer, Jason, on my own it was like Rocky stuff, dude. I moved out into Clackamas. I moved into this guy's garage, and I started eating right. I trained every morning, every night. I lost 15 pounds, and I was in the best shape of my life going into that second season. And I ended up, the first tournament we went to, I won like 4 matches that day. And it was more than I won the whole year before. And so now my confidence is blown way up. My head's way up in the seat rafters, And so I went on a winning spree that second year, and I ended up winning just about all my matches that second year. I came back, I won like 16, 17 matches. I only lost a small handful. I ended up taking second, getting into the finals for the regionals, which qualifies for nationals. And I wrestled in the finals, and I lost in the finals, but I qualified for nationals. And I'm one of the oldest that's ever competed at the college nationals. I was 38 at the time now. And, at nationals, I ended up winning a match, moving forward, and then I lost a couple matches. And I got knocked out. And one of the guys I lost to, I beat 4 times that year, And so, I had a tough national tournament. But the thing was, I made it to the national wrestling tournament. 38 years old. That life was put behind me. The odds of making that kind of comeback was really rare, And but wrestling became that key recipe for me, at the right time. Now I'm an athlete. I'm an elite athlete. I've been training, eating right, living right. I'm at the national tournament. I'm competing with with all the best. And but what really happened on that team was, I brought life experience into that wrestling room. And that whole team did better over that 2 years because I was on that team with that team, Everybody changed their life. Everybody was making better decisions. Everybody wanted to win the national title. And really we're all friends today, We're all friends today, and we stay in contact. But they were changing my life, and I was changing their life,
Right.
I was like, you guys don't realize how important I need you guys, and come to find out they needed me too, So,
that's awesome. What weight did you wrestle at?
197 my first year, then I wrestled 184 my second year.
Okay, right.
And then I wasn't done yet. I was still healthy, and I found out about the Masters, and I was like, what do you mean these elite old guys get together and compete, And I thought, I'll just come mop them up, I'm an elite college athlete now, And I went to Vegas to compete in the Opens and the Masters, and I placed in the top 3 in both Greco and freestyle. But what I learned was that was a competitive, serious league, man. These guys are some of the best in their time. They're coaches and athletes that train all year to come together to compete for a national title, And but I competed for another 9 years all over.
Wow.
Yeah. I even competed at the World Championships out in Athens, Greece in 2015. And man, wrestling really, really helped shape my life,
Wow. That's such a cool story, and I'm listening, and you started at 37. You saw in my video promo at the beginning that, I did some pro wrestling in my time.
Yeah.
And I started pro wrestling different type of wrestling, but
Yep.
pro wrestling at
Yep.
38 years old.
Oh my
30,
God,
I started at 38.
I love that.
And so when you were saying that the team benefited from you being on the team because of your life experience, you know, I have to feel the same way that when I was in the locker room with some of these kids that, you know, I created some of the best friends. You know, one of my best friends is still, you know, still wrestling. Actually, he just booked me for a show, so I'll be on the show in December with him.
Sweet.
But, you know, we're still connected. But I feel like I learned a lot about, you know, how to be a pro wrestler, but I think they learned a lot about life from me. And I just kind of like those, that was so significant.
Well, you get these kids together right out of high school, and they've been with their parents and their coaches all year and their community for their whole life, and then they get spit out to another state and go to college. They're accountable to themselves, and they just really kind of let loose to go, you know, and it's really hard to stay grounded, you know. And when you can and also when you can impact somebody in a positive way, it's a win, you know. You know, a lot of those kids, some of them struggled and came from D1, struggled and came back to community college, and some were, you know, making bad choices but ended up back home and in college. They're just a hodgepodge, you know. And when you've got a guy who's really focused on making good choices around, when you have it around you, it's infectious, man. And then you can share personal story, personal struggle, personal demise, personal aspirations and goals. People gravitate. They're like, I want some of that. I want to. I can do this too, you know. We kind of got off. This is really great content, great information, great subject. I love talking about this stuff, man, because this is the healthy conversations, Jason. This is talking about real life, good stuff. But the ESPN, the original question was, how did it end up on ESPN? That was the question.
That was the question. Here we are.
Right. So let's you know, and that's what I love about these things. They just kind of move and flow and ebb, and you know, and at the end of the day, hopefully a positive message is put out there, you know, and somebody is you know, learns from it, you know, somebody's affected by it, you know, that's the key. But so there you are. You got the old guy competing in college, 38 years old, and Jim Basita from the Oregonian. It's a local big paper we have. He does a front page in the sports section on Sunday about my story the first year, right? Even though I lost all that, the win was that I was there, you know, and the story needed to be told. And he told the story, and he forgot about me, right? Next thing you know, I'm winning the next year. I'm winning. I'm ranked number 2 in the region. I'm suspected to go to nationals. I'm winning. Well, he captures the story again. And somebody at ESPN caught wind of this story just in time. And they said, 38-year-old college athlete, possibly going to nationals.
Right.
And he's winning. So that's an ESPN story in itself, right? They dug a little deeper and found out about my history, and they just could not believe that it was happening. And so they flew right in and started hanging out with me through regionals, and they went to nationals with me, and they started videoing and talking to me and doing interviews and stuff. They couldn't believe that I came from where I came from, and here I am getting ready to go to nationals to compete, you know. So it was just a great story. It was one of those stories you don't have to win nationals for it to be a great story. The story is that you came from this deep, dark place, and now here you are in this place of light, you know. And it was a unique story. Wrestling, why wrestling, you know?
Wrestling does not get enough coverage, so I love hearing that it did. And I don't know if I even shared this with you, but my son was a high school wrestler through, you know, all 4 years. I loved watching him wrestle. One of my favorite things ever. He played, you know, other sports, and what it's helped him do as a martial artist. I mean, there's no athletes like wrestlers. I really, truly believe that. I mean, he played football, he played baseball, he's a martial artist, but the wrestling workouts and the work ethic that he got and just that camaraderie with the team. I've always loved everything about wrestling.
I mean, there you are in a singlet out in the middle of the mat all by yourself with one other competitor and 10,000 people around you. I mean, you could not be more on the spot, you know?
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like wrestling was your personal vision quest, if you will, right?
Yes,
I mean, you went on a mission to
yes.
do this. And then, by the way, where can we watch? Where can we find
Yeah.
that ESPN story?
So
So,
there's a couple of places you can go. I'd encourage you to go to my website. It's beachampioninlife.com.
mhm,
And there's an ESPN documentary there, and there's some other YouTube stuff, but you can go there and find it. And then
sweet.
you can learn more about the story, a little more backstory and our autobiography and our tours and things like that. You can learn a lot more about, our journey.
Yeah. Well, so I apologize. I wasn't able. I didn't get to watch the story yet,
You'll
but
have
I've
to circle back around now.
I've read a lot now. Now I
Yeah,
have to. And then I want to talk about where people can get your book.
Yeah. So I always encourage people to private message me because then they can get a signed copy directly from me. But it is available on our website. You can click on it there. It goes through Amazon to get it. You can always get the book on Amazon. It's Be a Champion in Life, the book is becoming curriculum in some of the schools that we do seminars in now. So we'll come in and talk to the kids about, drugs and my story and, impact them. And then the schools are buying classroom sets and they're starting to read and discuss the, chapter by chapter.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So it's great. It's a great teaching and coaching tool for anybody, for teens, for coaches. Coaches are buying them. So when you have a kid that's struggling or you think it'll impact his life, you give it to the kid, give him an assignment to read it, and then bring it back to me. And then you can pass it out again. And coaches are keeping a couple on their desk.
Yeah, no, I love that. I actually do that with my team in my school. Is I a book that I know that will impact them. I'll kind of pass it around. It'll go through each person. They're all reading different books. So I love that. And I will definitely be requesting a book from you so you can sign it for me. And I'd love to read that as well. Yeah. So, well, listen, as we start to wrap up in these last few minutes, I want to invite anybody that is currently watching this live to ask any questions, anything you want to know before we wrap up today. Please drop any comments for questions, and we'd love to answer those for you. But Richard, if we could just kind of, with your final thoughts, what is coming up for Be a Champion in Life? What is coming up for you? What are your future plans?
Yeah, so we're actually putting together another fall tour. I tour around the country every fall. That's when most of the schools book us, is during the fall, beginning of the school year. Remember, I was shut down for COVID for 3 years. I didn't have a single event.
Yeah.
Single event for 3 years. And my wife and I went all in. She quit her job. We rented out our house. We jumped in a trailer, wrapped it up in Be a Champion, and we hit the road running. And 5 months later, we circled the United States, 27,000 miles, and we had 32 events last fall.
Wow.
So we got to relaunch and take the risk, and it worked out. But right now, we're booking all across the country, all the way through November right now. And middle school, high school, colleges. I do public leadership events for corporate business, keynote. It's just a great message all the way around. Everybody can benefit from. But yeah, we're booking our fall tour right now. So we're booking schools. And we have, honestly, the my price for what we do is incredible. A silver program is $2,000 for the school, and what they do is if you book multi schools in the community, in the district, 2 or more, it's only $2,000. And we don't just come in and speak for 40 minutes and leave. I spend the whole day at the school. We do a assembly, we do focus groups, breakout groups. I go to wrestling practice after school and meet the wrestling team and go to club at night. It's an all-day event, and we're hoping to reach kids from different angles throughout the day, So it's a great deal. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I'll talk with you more about that because I definitely have some relationships here in our community. I think that you'd be a good fit to come and speak. So we'll see if we can make that happen. But I just want to thank you for sharing your story with me today and spending the hour with me and talking all about leadership and motivation and discipline and coming out of that, that deep hole of addiction and, spending time in prison to turn it all around with a career in wrestling at 38 years old and taking your show literally on the road to going and talking to kids and inspiring the future. So I just think that's amazing. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason, for everything you're doing too. Appreciate what you do impacting people. This is great. Yeah, we did it. Thanks
That's
for
awesome.
having me on today, dude.
Yeah, it was great. It was a good discussion. So guys, listen, thank you. If you've been watching here live, really appreciate you guys checking in with us today. If you're watching this on a replay, let us know what you think. Drop some comments, and don't forget to go to YouTube and subscribe to the Master Motivation Podcast and let everybody know about it. Have them watch this video with Richard Jensen. Thanks again, sir. Have a great day. Hang out for a minute. I'll be right back.